I didn't expect anything to happen. That's probably why it did. It started in a laundromat that always smelled faintly like overheated fabric softener and rain. I went there every Sunday at 7:30 p.m., not because it was convenient, but because it was empty. Fewer people meant fewer chances to feel like I was standing in the wrong decade of my life. She was already there the first time I noticed her. Mid-40s, maybe older. Hair tied back loosely, like she'd given up fighting it halfway through the day. She wore simple things, dark jeans, a soft sweater, but somehow they didn't look simple on her. They looked deliberate, like she'd lived in them. She folded clothes slowly, not distracted, just unhurried. The second Sunday, she looked up when I walked in. "You're consistent," she said. I blinked. "With laundry." She smiled. Not big, just enough to crease the corner of her eyes. "With timing." I laughed, but it came out quieter than I meant it to. I busied myself stuffing quarters into the machine, counting them twice even though I knew the amount. I could feel her eyes flick toward my hands for a second, then back to her basket. That was it. That was how it began. After that, Sundays felt less empty. We didn't talk much at first, just small observations. "Cold again," she'd say, glancing at the fogged windows. "Yeah, feels like winter doesn't know when to leave." She'd hum in agreement. Sometimes she'd sit across from me while the machines rattled, folding a towel with careful precision. I started noticing her hands. The way her fingers pressed along each crease like she was smoothing something invisible out of it. I don't know when it shifted from noticing to waiting. I started arriving 5 minutes earlier, then 10. Once, I almost skipped a week because I told myself this was stupid. But I went anyway. I live alone. Small apartment. Second floor. I keep my phone face down most nights. Sometimes I open my messages and type something to people I used to know. "Hey, how've you been?" Then I erase it. The cursor blinking feels louder than it should. On Sundays, though, I didn't erase anything. I just sat there, pretending to scroll while watching the reflection of her in the dryer door. One night, the place was fuller than usual. A couple arguing near the vending machine. A kid running in circles. She caught my eye and rolled hers slightly, like we shared something. "Crowded," I said. "Uncivilized," she replied, deadpan. I laughed harder than the joke deserved. She noticed. I could tell. That night, our machines finished at the same time. We stood side by side folding clothes on the long metal table. My sleeve brushed her wrist. It wasn't dramatic. It barely counted as contact. But she didn't move away. I felt my throat tighten for no reason I could explain. I folded the same t-shirt twice before realizing I'd already done it. She glanced down at it. "Careful," she said softly. "You'll iron it flat just by staring." "Sorry," I muttered. "For what?" I didn't have an answer. There was something steady about her. Not maternal, not distant, just steady, like she wasn't trying to be seen but didn't mind if I looked. When we finished, she gathered her basket and hesitated near the door. "You always come Sundays?" she asked. "Yeah." She nodded once. "Good." The word lingered longer than it should have. I watched her walk out into the parking lot. She didn't rush. The streetlight caught the side of her face for a moment before she disappeared past the row of cars. I stood there longer than necessary, holding a sock I'd already folded. That night, when I got home, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You left your gray hoodie in dryer 3. Thought you'd want it back." I stared at the message. I hadn't given her my number, and I knew exactly who it was. I didn't text back right away. I read the message 3 times, then checked the hoodie hanging on the back of my chair like it might disappear. It was definitely missing. How did she get my number? Felt like the wrong question. The real one was, why did that make my chest feel tight? I replied after 10 minutes. "Thanks. I can grab it next Sunday." 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "Where you could come by?" "I'm in apartment 1B. Saves it from another spin cycle." Apartment 1B. I'd walked past that door a dozen times without knowing it was hers. I stared at the hallway in my mind like it had shifted. I told myself it was practical. Nothing else. When she opened the door, she was barefoot. Hair down this time. Softer. The apartment smelled like ginger and something steeping. "Laundry emergencies," she said, holding up my hoodie. "Happen more often than you'd think." "Thanks." I replied, suddenly aware of how young I must look standing there with my hands half in my pockets. She didn't step back right away. Then she did. Do you want tea? I made too much. I hesitated for a second too long. Sure. Her place was neat but lived in. Books stacked near the couch. A folded blanket at one end like someone had been sitting there alone for a while. She poured tea into mismatched mugs. I used to hate Sundays, she said casually, handing me one. When my son was little, Sundays meant packing him up for his dad's place. Son. The word shifted something inside me. Oh, I said. How old is he? 22. A faint smile. Thinks he knows everything. I laughed quietly. That sounds familiar. She studied my face for a second longer than before. Not uncomfortable. Just measuring. Are you in school? She asked. Dropped out last year. I said before I could filter it. Wasn't for me. I stared at the tea like it needed stirring even though it didn't. I don't usually tell people that. It comes with explanations. With disappointment. She didn't offer advice. Didn't ask why. Sometimes, she said slowly, not fitting somewhere just means you're not supposed to stay. I looked up at her then. Really looked. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was full. Like both of us were thinking the same thing, but choosing not to name it. Her son was 2 years younger than me. That fact hovered in the room like steam. I imagined him walking through this door. Imagined him seeing me here, holding his mother's mug. The thought made my stomach tighten. I set the cup down carefully. This is probably weird, I said. For who? She asked. For you. She tilted her head slightly. You think I don't know how old you are? I didn't answer. She stepped closer to take the empty mug from my hand. Our fingers brushed. This time it wasn't accidental. Neither of us moved. Up close, I could see faint lines near her eyes. Not flaws. Just proof of time. I felt suddenly aware of how little I had of that. You don't have to look so guilty, she said softly. I'm not. You are. Her voice wasn't teasing. It was gentle, almost protective. I swallowed. I just don't want to make things complicated. She held my gaze for a long second. Life's already complicated, she said. We're just having tea. Just tea. Her hand lingered a fraction too long before she stepped back. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next Sunday, she wasn't there. I told myself that was normal. People miss Sundays. The laundromat felt louder without her, even though it wasn't. The machines clanked the same. The fluorescent lights still buzzed faintly. I sat in the same plastic chair, but the space across from me stayed empty. I checked my phone twice. Nothing. I almost texted. Everything okay? Too much. I erased it. When I got home, I found myself standing outside 1B without planning to. Just there. Like my feet had decided before I did. I didn't knock. I went upstairs instead. Monday evening, I ran into her by accident. Or maybe not. She was at the mailbox downstairs, flipping through envelopes. Oh, she said when she saw me. Just that. Not surprised. Not warm. You weren't there yesterday. I know. Silence. Papers sliding back into a metal box. Everything okay? I asked, hating how careful my voice sounded. She nodded once. My son came by. That word again. Oh, he doesn't like the idea of me. She trailed off, then shook her head slightly. Never mind. Of you what? She looked at me then. Really looked. Something guarded had settled in her eyes. Of me not being alone, she finished quietly. The hallway felt smaller. I shoved my hands into my pockets to stop them from doing something stupid. Like reaching for her. Like proving a point. He knows about. I couldn't even finish the sentence. There's nothing to know, she said quickly. The quickness hurt more than it should have. We stood there with the faint hum of the building's old refrigerator bleeding through the walls. I became hyper-aware of how close we were. Close enough to touch. Close enough to step back. I don't want to complicate your life, I said. You already have, she replied. Not sharp, just honest. A door upstairs opened. Footsteps echoed down the staircase. We both shifted instinctively, a few inches apart, like we'd been caught doing something wrong even though we weren't doing anything. Not technically. Later that week, she texted. Tea. Just tea. I stared at the words for a long time before replying. When I walked into her apartment this time, something felt different. The air tighter. Her hair pulled back again, like armor. We sat on the couch instead of at the small kitchen table. Too close. Our knees almost touched. I should probably create some space, she said, staring at her mug. From me. From this. I laughed under my breath. We're sitting. She didn't smile. That's how it starts, she said. My chest tightened. I wanted to tell her I wasn't a mistake waiting to happen, that I wasn't just her son's age, that I wasn't temporary. Instead, I said nothing. She set her mug down carefully. Her fingers trembled, just slightly. I don't know what you want, she admitted. The truth was, I didn't either. Not in words. I leaned forward without deciding to. Close enough to feel her breath shift. Close enough to see the question in her eyes. If I said I just like being here, I said quietly. Her gaze dropped to my mouth for a second. That second stretched. Her hand came up, hesitant, resting against my chest like she was testing something fragile. Not pushing, not pulling, just there. My heart was too loud. We didn't move. And then, a knock at the door. Sharp, sudden. Her hand fell away like it had been burned. The knock was her son. I knew before she opened the door. Same eyes. Same quiet way of standing, like he was always half deciding whether to leave. He looked at me first. Not surprised. Just aware. I forgot my charger, he said to her, but his eyes stayed on me a beat too long. I stepped back automatically. Hands up slightly, like I'd been caught reaching for something that wasn't mine. She moved differently around him. Straighter. Careful. I left 2 minutes later. See you, I said, and it sounded smaller than I meant it to. She didn't walk me out. After that, something shifted. She stopped texting first. When we crossed paths, it was polite, measured. Sundays became unpredictable again. Sometimes she was there, sometimes not. I told myself it was fine. I went out more that week. Sat with people I barely knew. Laughed too loud at things that weren't funny. At one point, a girl my age leaned across a table and touched my wrist when she spoke. I felt nothing, and that scared me more than if I had. Friday evening, I found her sitting on the small bench outside the building. The sun was low, casting that tired gold light that makes everything look temporary. She looked up when she heard my steps. You've been busy, she said. It wasn't an accusation. It almost sounded like she was convincing herself of something. Not really. I saw you the other night. My stomach tightened. Saw me. With friends. A small pause. A girl. Oh. Silence settled between us. Not sharp. Just heavy. I sat beside her, leaving a respectful space. Too respectful. She was laughing a lot, she added. She laughs at everything, I said, then immediately wished I hadn't. Her jaw shifted slightly, barely noticeable, but I saw it. That's good, she said. You should be with someone who laughs. Is that what you want? She didn't answer right away. A car passed. Somewhere down the street, someone was arguing about groceries. Ordinary life moving like nothing was cracking open here. I want you to have a life that doesn't orbit around this building, she said finally. This building. This bench. My kitchen. Sundays. I looked at her hands folded in her lap. She was twisting the edge of her sleeve between her fingers, slow and unconscious. You think that's what I'm doing? I asked. I think you're young, she replied softly. And I think I don't trust myself. That landed harder than anything else. Don't trust yourself to what? She exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding that breath for days. To not need you. The words hung there. Need. Not want. Not like. Need. I felt something in my chest pull tight. You think I don't? I stopped. Started again. You think this is just something I'm passing through? I think, she said carefully, that one day you'll wake up and realize I was a season. And I'll be the one who stayed too long. I turned toward her fully then, close enough that our shoulders brushed. I'm not a kid, I said. I know, she whispered. That's the problem. Her eyes lifted to mine. No defenses left now. No practiced calm. Just fear. And something deeper under it. My hand moved before my mind did, resting lightly over hers. She didn't pull away. The world felt narrowed down to that single point of contact. If I said I don't want easy, I murmured, would you believe me? Her gaze dropped to our hands. Then to my mouth. Then back to my eyes. Do you know what you're asking? She said, barely audible. I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure if I was asking her, or daring her to ask me. She stopped coming outside. Not to the bench. Not to the laundromat. Not even to check the mail at the same time she used to, like it was accidental. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then it became a pattern. Sunday night came and went. The laundromat hummed, half full. Dryer 3 sat open for a long time, like it was waiting for something that didn't arrive. I folded my clothes too fast. Left early. I didn't text her. That felt like restraint. Or pride. Or fear pretending to be both. Monday, I passed her door and heard voices inside. Laughter. A man's. Lower. Older than mine. I stopped on the stairs without meaning to. I could have knocked. I didn't. Tuesday, she texted. Sorry I've been distant. Old habits resurfacing. That was it. No explanation. No invitation. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Old habits could mean anything. Could mean everything. I typed. Are you okay? Deleted it. Typed again. Do you want space? Deleted that too. What I sent was worse. Got it. 3 minutes passed. Then 5. No reply. That night, I lay on my bed fully dressed, phone on my chest, feeling like I was waiting for permission to breathe. I imagined scenarios I didn't want to imagine. Her with someone who knew how to stay, who fit into her life without bending it out of shape. The next day, I didn't come home right away. I walked. Took the long way. Sat in a cafe I didn't like because it was loud enough to drown my thoughts. I watched couples talk over each other. Watched a woman my age laugh with her whole body. I felt nothing. That scared me. Wednesday evening, I finally ran into her. She was carrying groceries, keys already in hand. She froze when she saw me. Just for a beat. Hey, I said. Hey. She looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone who'd been holding something heavy at arm's length for too long. You've been busy, she said again. Same words as before. Different meaning. So have you. She nodded. Didn't deny it. There's someone, she said suddenly, too fast. From my past. He reached out. The hallway seemed to tilt. Oh, he's not, she stopped. Pressed her lips together. I shouldn't be explaining myself to you. I wanted to tell her I didn't need explanations. That I just needed honesty. That I needed to know if I was being erased carefully or abruptly. Instead, I stepped back. That's okay, I said. You don't owe me anything. Her eyes flickered. Hurt. Relief. Both. Thank you, she whispered. I nodded. Turned. Took the stairs 2 at a time. I didn't go to the laundromat that Sunday. Or the next. I let my clothes pile up. Let routines dissolve. I told myself this was what distance looked like when it was done right. One night, I typed a message and didn't erase it. I missed the quiet with you. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't send it. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. And somewhere downstairs, dryer 3 stayed empty. It was raining the night I finally knocked. Not dramatic rain. Just steady. Patient. The kind that makes everything smell like concrete and old leaves. I stood outside 1B longer than I should have. Hands damp. Pulse too loud for a hallway that quiet. I almost left twice. Told myself this was pride. Or dignity. Or maturity. It wasn't. It was fear of hearing something final. I knocked before I could overthink it again. She opened the door halfway, like she wasn't sure who she expected. When she saw me, something shifted in her face. Not shock. Not relief. Just a soft exhale. Hi, she said. Hi. We stood there with the rain tapping faintly against the windows behind her. I won't stay long, I added quickly. That's usually how it starts, she replied, and there was the faintest curve to her mouth. Not a joke. Just recognition. She stepped aside anyway. Her apartment felt the same. The blanket still folded on the couch. 2 mugs in the sink this time. I noticed that before I could stop myself. He left, she said, following my eyes. Yesterday. I nodded. Didn't ask who. We moved into the kitchen without planning to. It felt safer in there. Smaller. Less room for things to echo. I've been trying to do the responsible thing, she said, leaning back against the counter. Trying to be the adult in this. You are the adult, I said quietly. A flicker of something. Irritation, maybe. That's not what I mean. Silence stretched. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, someone dropped something heavy. I thought if I stepped back, she continued, it would make this fade. That you'd move on. That I'd feel less. And do you? I asked. She didn't answer right away. No. The word was small. Honest. I felt my shoulders drop slightly, like I'd been bracing for impact. I don't need you to promise anything, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I don't need forever. I just need to know I wasn't imagining it. Her eyes lifted to mine. You weren't, she said. That did something to me. Something simple. Solid. I stepped closer, not touching yet. Close enough that I could see the faint line between her brows when she was thinking too hard. I know I'm younger, I said. I know this looks reckless, but I'm not confused about how I feel. Her breath caught, barely. And how do you feel? She asked. There it was. The risk. I swallowed. I feel calm with you. I feel seen. And that's not something I trip over every day. Her eyes softened at that. Not because it was romantic, because it was true. She reached out first this time. Her hand resting against my chest again, like before. Testing. I'm scared, she admitted. I know. If this falls apart, it might, I said gently. Most things do. A small, surprised laugh left her. Not amused. Just real. That's not comforting. It's honest. We stood there, inches apart, the air thick with everything we hadn't dared to say before. I don't want to be your rebellion, she said. You're not. I don't want to be your lesson. You're not that either. She searched my face like she was looking for cracks. For immaturity. For doubt. Maybe she found some. I'm sure they're there. But she also found something else. Slowly, carefully, she let her forehead rest against mine. No rush. No performance. Just warmth. Okay, she whispered. And for once, okay felt like enough. Time didn't rush us after that. It didn't reward us either. It just moved. We didn't suddenly become fearless. We didn't announce anything to anyone. We didn't post photos or rename what we were doing. We kept showing up. Sunday nights returned, but not always at 7:30. Sometimes we went later, when the laundromat was nearly empty again. Sometimes we didn't go at all and let the clothes pile up on purpose. Routine became something we chose, not something we hid inside. Her son came by once while I was there. Not a surprise this time. Just a knock. A look. A quiet assessment. We shook hands. It wasn't approval, but it wasn't war. That felt like progress. Mornings shifted too. I started stopping by her place before work. 8:47 a.m., almost accidentally consistent. She'd already be awake, hair slightly undone, black coffee in her favorite chipped mug. You're predictable, she'd say. With timing. I'd reply. She'd roll her eyes, but she'd pour me tea anyway. We talk more now. Not in dramatic confessions. Just in pieces. About her marriage. How it ended slowly, not explosively. About the year I dropped out and pretended it didn't matter. Sometimes we'd sit on that bench outside the building in the early evening. Close, but not clinging. The street still noisy. Life still ordinary. One night, she leaned into me without thinking. Just rested there. I didn't comment on it. That's how I knew it was real. There were still moments of doubt. Age doesn't disappear. Neither does history. Sometimes she'd look at me like she was calculating future consequences. Sometimes I'd wonder if I was stepping into a story already halfway written. But the fear stopped running the room. We stopped treating this like something fragile and temporary. Instead, it felt steady. Not fireworks. Not rebellion. Just warmth. One Sunday, months later, dryer 3 was ours again. I folded a t-shirt wrong and she reached over to fix it, fingers brushing mine in that same quiet way. Careful, she murmured. You'll iron it flat just by staring. I smiled. Some things don't change. She looked at me then. Really looked, and there was no panic in it. No measuring. Just recognition. When we walked home together, she slipped her hand into mine without hesitation. It wasn't dramatic. It was certain. That night, I left my hoodie downstairs on purpose. The next morning at 8:47, she texted. You forgot something. I replied almost immediately. I know. She opened the door before I knocked. Predictable, she said softly. I stepped inside like I belonged there. Not because it was dramatic, but because it felt earned. Sometimes love isn't loud. Sometimes it's just two people deciding, again and again, not to step away. If this story stayed with you, tell me, what kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?